what's up, guys? Welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest podcast and channel. Thanks for being here, being subbed. And if you're not, hit the button. And if you're listening on YouTube, hit the like. It's like walking in the room and hitting that light switch. Let's brighten up the place and get into this beautifully honest reaction. I thought it was funny because I recently was talking about Diddy, Sean Combs, and the options that I feel like he has at this point in time, if there is going to be any moving forward for him, right? And I mentioned somebody in that commentary. Sometimes I'm just flowing by the spirit, guys, like for real. So sometimes things kind of come out of my mouth via my spirit, and I had no idea that something else was going to come of it. So I mentioned Jay Morrison in the commentary that I did recently about Sean Combs. Not saying that they have any direct connection, but I was speaking about the mindsets of people and how it is unfortunate that a lot of people, especially in the African American community, because for the most part, and please don't take any offense to this, but it's just the truth. Look at the statistics, look at the facts, look at the real of it all. The African American community is pretty much a wealthless community. Yeah, they make a lot of money, but they spend a lot of it, and there's just not a whole lot of wealth that is collected. And unfortunately, there's a lot of grifting and a lot of taking advantage of the people in the African American community. Because for the most part, a lot of African Americans are trusting. They're loving, they're trusting, and whatever. I could go down the list. So when you have people like a Jay Morrison who come along, who play on the emotions and all of that good stuff. Well, it's not good stuff, but they play on the emotions and, they make you feel like you're going to be a part of something bigger. And it's about building, and it's about legacy, and it's about building generational wealth. That's one of the things that they really love to harp on, which they're not thinking about generational wealth for you, for your family. They're thinking about it for themselves. So if they can grift off of you to get it for themselves, that's what they're going to do. Well, a lot of the reason why Jay Morrison was able to come up is because of marketing. He did a lot of marketing on social media. He was able to get spots on The Breakfast Club on a number of occasions. He sat down with DJ Vlad. He got a lot of eyeballs on him. But one of those places that he got a lot of eyeballs on him kind of started at the Shade Room. So ironically, the Shade Room did a little, and when I say little, it was little. It was only maybe like 11 minutes. I'll put the full link to it in the description box, but I want to go through it. I haven't listened to it yet. I want to give my honest reaction to it as it plays, because not long after I did my commentary about Sean Combs and his options I felt like he had moving forward, if there are any, or just giving my perspective and my opinion, I went over to Instagram and then I saw this clip promoting a YouTube video that the Shade Room did about Jay Morrison. So let's just go ahead and get into this, because I'm interested to hear what they have to say and share.
Secure the bag. My goal is to be the plug or to fumble the bag.
And this is a smack in the face for someone who took a gamble.
People trusted him.
But our people are thirsty. Our people are hungry for knowledge.
He was the viral guy in Atlanta, spitting finance knowledge to anybody who listened on the street corner. But now Jay Morrison is in hot water.
I invested $40,000.
$500.
It's $2,000.
He got 15,000 people to invest in a real estate fund.
Think about that. 15,000 people he got to trust him, or other people that knew people that felt like they trusted him, talked other people into this quote unquote investment, which, like the girl at the beginning said, people took a gamble. And that's really what this was. It wasn't even really an investment. It was more of a gamble.
$7.7 million they all raised. A new Black Wall Street was on the horizon.
The money has been just evaporated.
And apparently there's little to show for it. And investors are going off on social media.
Everything done in darkness must come to light.
I'm Justin Carter. This is TSR Investigates.
They're calling it the Tulsa misappropriation. Black investors claim fraud. Thousands misled by the Tulsa real estate fund.
Businessman Jay Morrison has been hustling for a long time. He spent many of his earlier years in prison, wrapped up in the drug game, before he eventually found his footing in finance and the real estate industry in Atlanta. And by the looks of it on social media, he turned things around, amassing quite a following on social media, known for those corner classes where he teaches financial literacy in public spaces. It's clout and popularity that spawned into something big in 2018. The Tulsa Real Estate Fund. It's regulated by the government, the SEC, allowing qualified people to crowdfund with others with the goal of investing and owning real estate. 15,000 people joined the movement, but 6 years later, that $11.7 million that they've raised has nearly dried up, and many of the investors are pointing their finger at one person.
And as a fellow real estate developer, I took a liking to what he was talking about.
And Julian Gordon says it seemed that Jay Morrison had it all figured out back in 2018.
And we're looking for other towns and areas throughout the country where we can actually build true Black Wall Street districts and models. We will build a Black Wall Street with this fund. That is a fact.
He called it the Tulsa Real Estate Fund in honor of what was known as the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma back in the early 1900s. It was a haven for successful Black businesses before a white mob set it on fire in 1921. 300 people died.
We are town shopping. My goal is to be the plug.
The Tulsa Real Estate Fund was a unique concept and turned out to be the largest Black-owned real estate crowd fund. Everybody had to put in at least $500. Gordon, a real estate investor himself, he put in $40,000, the most of anyone.
I never invest anything that I can't lose, but when you invest, you don't intend to lose at the same time.
And
$40,000, my God. I didn't put 5 cents into that crap. I had heard about it, but I never followed a lot of that stuff. And I'm just one of these people when it comes to investing. If you're going to do it, you want to go with things that are tried and true. And the stock market has been around for decades upon decades upon decades. And this guy, how much time did he serve in prison? Okay, yeah, that part.
that's what Gordon says happened with this. Their crown jewel investment, a 30,000 square foot event and workspace called the Legacy Center in Atlanta. It was a big deal when it opened up in January 2020. Everybody called it the Black House. According to SEC filings, the Tulsa Fund put aside over $3.5 million to both acquire it and develop it.
But I don't believe in just flipping houses. I believe you got to flip the people in the community as well.
Politicians, well-known pastors, celebrities were all there to celebrate the boom that was happening. This is Jay Morrison and his wife, Ernestine, who said back then that they would even be moving their personal businesses into the space.
So it's not that Jay's just bringing his company to the Legacy Center because it looks cool. I'm bringing a reputable, qualified, Class A tenant to the Legacy Center to anchor us and make sure we got some revenue coming in every month.
But it's his building. So you mean to tell me that you're paying yourself rent? Get out of here. And listen, I'm not going into the depths and details of business when it comes to people who actually do that for a tax write-off, but that was not a selling point to me for anyone else to come to rent space in his Legacy Center.
Quickly learned COVID-19 would slow everything down. Gordon says there was no bounce back plan and the communication started to fade.
I was a friend at this time, and I sat in the Legacy Center in his corner office, and I was told him straight up that your name has a lot of mud in the streets, but you have 15,000 people who are your biggest fans and believe in you, who he has since then alienated and really cut us off in many ways.
He says he began reading SEC filings and learned that both the SEC and DOJ had been conducting an investigation on the fund and Jay Morrison. It was revealed in 2019 that the government issued a subpoena seeking documents and information about the fund's operations, but nothing later came of it. And by May 2020, the investigation was closed. But Gordon says that he still noticed that the math wasn't mathing, that $11.7 million initially raised was being swallowed up, losing millions year over.
Not swallowed up. I'm sorry. Everybody, anytime I hear that now, I laugh. But yeah, not the TD Jakes line.
Year, according to these SEC filings, with no recorded profits. And at the same time, the fund manager, Jay Morrison, was allegedly paying himself in management fees.
He's eaten over $1 million, almost probably $2 million by now in management fees. He's paid his wife through the organization. She used the facilities without probably any payment. She hosted her podcast there. She hosted her greenlit ATL events there. And I guarantee that there's no transaction of her paying us, the investors or the entity, for the usage of that space.
We spoke to...
That's crazy. I mean, again, all of the money was going to him and his wife and his family.
Robinson, who invested $500, the minimum required to join. She says that although it wasn't a lot of money, Morrison hasn't communicated much as to what's been going on. And to her surprise, she found out just weeks ago on social media that the Legacy Center was being sold, their anchor investment, listed here for $3.65 million.
I just feel like it's real diabolical for you to take advantage on the vulnerabilities of the average person. We can't keep starting over. And this is a smack in the face for someone who took a gamble.
The internet has since caught on and have been blasting Morrison on social media.
There are over 15,000 victims of his lies and incompetence.
Once again, he's pulling on the emotions of Black people.
Without a board of directors, I, as an individual investor, have no other way to hold him accountable or influence the direction of the fund.
Many filing complaints with the SEC against Jay Morrison, accusing him of misappropriating funds, even buying personal properties with it. This is one of them in South Fulton, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta.
It was a purchase through the fund, right? And so he purchased that, and the 27 acres that are adjacent to it somehow also ended up in his name. And he ended up trying to hide that transaction by creating an anonymous LLC called South Fulton Rentals in New Mexico, and then transferring that property into his name.
Do you see how the lengths and the depths that someone like this would go to, playing on the emotions of the people to get them to pull from their pockets, pulling on their heartstrings to give into his dream, which was all going for his profit. Purchasing property and under an anonymous LLC in New Mexico, a home in South Fulton with 27 acres. Listen, he is a fraud. All of those people, I don't care if they only invested the minimum of $500. Every single one of those 15,000 people should have already been filing a complaint with the SEC if they have not already done so.
Was catching so much heat about it that he addressed it in a town hall investor meeting last year. He called it a rumor.
So the facts are the property was sold by tref for $875,764.85. That netted the fund a $25,000 gain on the sale in under 60 days. This is all contract. This is all in contract. This is all documented. This is all from over a year ago. This exists. When we rush to judgment or have miscommunications, we can make these dangerous allegations.
LaToya Freeman, she's been in the background listening.
The trail that I follow was, hey, the fund purchased some land. The fund couldn't basically kind of go and develop that land into what it needed. So basically it sold him that land back. So
she's an experienced investor and says that she invested $2,000 into the fund.
As Black people, we always say we want to come together and practice group economics. And so that was probably the thing that really drew me.
Have you seen any return on your investment? What has been the reward thus far, if any?
Yeah. So obviously there hasn't been any return, but there was the one dividend.
She says in 2021, everyone did receive a dividend payment depending on how much your original investment was. Freeman got about $75.
99% of businesses fail in that 10 years, right? In a 10-year period. And so particularly with co-working space, COVID, there should have been a pivot to more your traditional real estate. I don't believe it was intentional. I just think it kind of, unfortunately got hit with COVID and didn't pivot. And so those are questions I do have for Jay. Is like, there should have been a pivot. I get it. The Legacy Center was kind of the marquee, but hey, maybe just sticking with a traditional real estate plan.
But you know something? If you are familiar with Bernie Madoff, who now is no longer living, but he went to prison for the Ponzi scheme of investing, I don't believe that it began as something intentional for him in the beginning either. A lot of times with these people, it's not intentional. It's not just rubbing the palms together. You know what? I'm going to scam some people today. I'm going to scheme. I'm going to defraud. I'm going to, get out here and tell people to shoot for their hopes and dreams with me, and I'm going to take advantage of them. No, I believe for the most part, they start out with good intentions, but because it's far above them and they get way in over their head, instead of having humility to say, you know what, things aren't working out the way that I anticipated that they would, and couple that with the lifestyle that they're able to live off of the people that are entrusting them to invest, they just keep going. So no, I don't care if it wasn't intentional. A lot of times it's not with these people, but it damn sure continued. And he's covering up purchases of property for his own personal gain. It's not right.
Says that he's not buying it and wants the SEC to reopen their investigation. And he's not alone.
Now, if they investigate and they find that everything he did was above the belt and okay, then all good.
I need us to step up and spin the block for us. I want people to hesitate to take advantage of us.
We did reach out to Jay Morrison about this for a comment. In turn, he sent us a statement. It says in part, quote, that there is no theft, scamming, misappropriation of funds, or fraud taking place in our company, nor has there ever been, despite the narrative being painted, any and all transactions that were related to me as the fund manager were done at fair market value, and most importantly, always intended to benefit the fund. Our factual legal history is both the SEC and FBI conducted 2 investigations on our company after an influx of social media slander, and both government agencies concluded no findings.
He calls it slander, which I caught that. But 2, unfortunately, when it comes to situations like this, with there being so many other things going on, is the FBI really focused in on a large group of mainly or all African American people that invested in something that turned out to be a scheme? When there's so many other things going on, especially like right now, we're in an election year with one of the people that's running for president has these crazy lunatics out here actually saying that the FBI needs to be taken down and all kinds of crazy stuff going. Like, no, that's not going to be their focus, unfortunately. So his statement that he made to the Shade Room, I feel nothing from that. I don't take that word as, oh, well, they did an investigation and they said there's nothing to see here. Keep moving forward. No, I don't buy it.
Respect ourselves and love our people. I, as a fund manager, own up to not being profitable fast enough and understand how this could be frustrating to some of our investors. Despite these obstacles, this has been a sincere effort to empower our community, our 15,000 investors, and will continue to be. We are committed to learning from our mistakes. obstacles we've overcome and to continue our mission to realize the historically elusive goal of mass-scale group economics within the Black community, end quote. He also pointed out that the fund has led to the investment of over 150 attainable housing units, as well as providing over 200 jobs. And they've even been in the community working with the Obama Foundation to host events for at-risk youth. But as far as the investors go, many of them I spoke to say that they will not stop until their voices are heard with the SEC. And of course, we'll be following up to see if that happens.
Listen, I hope they keep their feet on his neck, head, chest, back, butt, feet, kneecaps, wherever. Because to just brush it off like, oh, well, we tried, moving on, going to file for bankruptcy, get this personal property with these 27 acres attached to it under an assumed, LLC. So nobody hopefully will figure out that it's connected to me, which they found out. I'm just not here for that. It's not right. It is so frustrating. And I get so angry when I hear these stories about how people in the African American community do things like this and then people get taken. And the trust is already so broken that for those who may come along later that have every good intention, nothing but good intentions, people are on guard now and are not trusting. They're not as trusting as they were before they got duped by somebody like Jay Morrison. There's so many people that have talked about the situation, Tony the Closer, pocket watching with JT. Who else? So many other people. What happened to Common Sense has been definitely keeping his foot on Jay Morrison's neck, but also giving true financial investment, literacy, and education at the same time. So I respect that. But Tony the Closer, he made a comment in the Shade Room's comment section on this video. And he said, this man stole $100K from me, then used my past as a way to create a narrative to keep my hard-earned money. I told y'all many years ago this and was laughed at and shamed. Now thousands of investors and millions are gone. Hashtag no refunds, no peace. And I remember him talking about that too. They were supposed to be doing some sort of joint class thingy, conference, something along those lines. And it was something along the lines of maybe a contest or, something someone would be able to win. And Tony the Closer put his money up. And it was just it's a lot. But when I remember hearing about that, I was like, man. But again, this is no one I ever followed. I never had any thoughts about giving him any of my money when I started hearing about what he had going on. But again, people like him, they play on the emotions of the African American community who really are, for the most part, looking for a way up and a way out. Because a lot of them are in places of living check to check or struggling and having hopes and desires and wanting to aspire to more. And then they hear somebody like him who they view as someone who had hardships and trials in the past, and they've broken out of that and they're moving up and out of it. So it's like, if he can do it, then I can do it too, because he's out here telling people the real of what he really experienced and what he went through. But what goes around comes around, and you definitely reap what you sow. Harvest time eventually happens. And those seeds that have been planted, the harvest is coming. And the harvest is always bigger than the seeds. So he may have grifted and taken advantage of over 15,000 investors for $11 million at least. He'll lose a whole lot more. Trust and believe. Trust and believe, because payday always comes around. So guys, I just wanted to share that with you all because, again, I thought it was ironic that I was just talking about Sean Combs and his next steps and choices that I felt like he had moving forward. And I mentioned Jay Morrison, and then I saw this come up, and I said, you know what, I got to go ahead and speak about it. So I want to know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for being here, liking, and subscribing. I'm Beth, just being beautifully honest. So until next time, I wanted to keep it brief, beautiful, and now I'm going to say bye.